All right, there we go. Good evening, everyone. It is August 26th, Monday, and we are officially back at it from summer. It's been a fantastic summer in Stony Plain, but alas, the work must be done, the show must go on, and so we are here this evening. As you'll see, we are missing Mayor Choi. We wish him the best. He is taking a well-deserved break, and so you'll have my face as the front and center for the next 3 meetings. So hopefully council will go easy on me and not make it too difficult to fill his very large shoes. Councillor Anderson will be here momentarily. He is just running behind, but alas, we will go ahead and he should be here shortly. So, members of council, there is an agenda before you. I'll just look to see if there is any questions, any errors, any omissions, any additions to the agenda. Seeing none, Councillor Palechko for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Town Council adopt the August 26, 2024 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Administration, anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Excellent, thank you very much. With that, I will call to question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is our public input session. This is the time that we allow members of the public to come speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda. Administration, is there anybody registered to speak this evening?
Through the chair, no one registered.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, is there anyone in council chambers this evening that would like to come speak to council about anything not on the current agenda? Excellent. Please come forward. Please make sure you write your name on the sign-in sheet and introduce yourself to council and administration, and then you can go ahead. So in order to speak, if you just press the button, you'll see the microphone will light up red, and then these ones you do have to speak directly into, or we won't be able to hear you. Excellent, thank you.
Thanking you, Deputy Mayor Laurie, and council members. You can,
If you can just put that basically right in front.
Thanks, Pat. Anyway, thank you, Deputy Mayor Laurie and council members, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My cheat sheet's here. I am Sherry Howell. Some of you know me. I've lived in Stony Plain for a very long time. I also have been a very frequent user of the Umback off-leash dog park. Probably shortly after it opened, I adopted a couple of dogs and started going out there. So tonight, I'm here to tell you about a bit of a sad story that occurred a week ago yesterday at the park. And I think it's important that council, everyone in this room, know what happened out there. I arrived, well, maybe I should give you a little bit of background. Because I've been going to the park for so many years, I have always had something to say about it as things changed and so forth. So a number of years ago, because the storm pond needed some work, the park was closed for about 6 weeks, and the entrance, the parking lot, and the gate, and again, the grade going from the gate into the park had been changed. And a lot of the material that was used was quite sandy material. So being out there, and the entrance, it's a double gate, the entrance was filled with sand, and the grading down into the park, it had been more level and then up. The grading was now down and then up. I did talk to town staff about what I perceived could be a problem for people with any kind of mobility issue. The sand was hard for people in wheelchairs, manual wheelchairs, or walkers, or even somebody using a couple of canes to do. And there were a lot of people that did come into the park that had mobility issues. So there was a bit of a discussion about what could be done about it. And the solution was to put more sand down and then bring concrete blocks. So in between the two gates, they laid concrete blocks, and then down through the second gate, there is concrete blocks laid on sand. Well, this immediately caught my attention because it's not safe. The sand moves, the blocks move. Anybody with a mobility issue was at risk of having something happen. Even myself, when the sand did settle, the lip of the concrete blocks, I often slipped off just in the process of getting in and avoiding dogs coming out and so forth. It's just not stable. So last Sunday, it was August 18th, there was a terrible incident at that entranceway. There is a couple of people that come out on a fairly regular basis. He has been in a wheelchair for a number of years. He has a manual wheelchair, and he's quite proficient in using it. His wife was in a serious accident a couple of years ago, and she is confined to a wheelchair now too, and hers is a electric. So they're familiar with the entranceway and what they had to do. So last Sunday, the two of them arrived with their two dogs. He goes in manually and holds the gate, and the dogs are so well behaved, they just sit and wait. And she knew there was a bit of a lip. So as she was going through the entranceway, she always gave it just a little bit extra to get up over that lip. Well, the lip had changed again, and it was taller. It was harder to get over. The chair hit the lip. It went back. It threw her out of the chair. And there she was. As I arrived, people were helping her. She was laying in the entranceway, the bottom half inside the gate and her upper half on the outside of the gate, in so much pain. It was just heartbreaking to see. So I know first aid. I went over to offer my services. Everybody was so wonderful. So many people came over to assist. It was heartwarming. But it didn't help her situation. Someone had called 911. Took them a while to get there. I was absolutely, well, what can I say? I was so angry because it was so preventable. You know, a proper entrance, a safe entrance for anybody, including those that have mobility issues, has to be a number one concern with us. And it hasn't been. I don't know how serious her injuries are or whether I just don't know. I haven't heard from her husband or anything about the outcome. So I just think it's really important that everybody here know that that park is well used. It's used by people from all over, not only just our area, and it's used by many people with mobility issues. And I don't want to see this ever happen again to anybody out there. It was terrible. So I'm hoping that there will be some discussion and some better solutions for that entranceway. Okay? And while you're at it, move that damn bench right inside the entranceway. That's where all the trouble happens. Coming and going, dogs meeting, going in and coming out, and people sitting on the bench not paying attention to their dogs. Anyway, thank you all very much for listening to me, and I trust you all to do what is necessary to help keep the park users safe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sherry. Just before we put it up here, we received a printout. Was this something that you provided in advance?
It was in one of the chat rooms. It was the Umbach chat room. And so I printed it out, and I didn't print beyond what was those.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is not a submission from you for our administrator?
No.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Just appreciate that. First and foremost, I'd just like to check in with admin, just make sure, are we aware of the incident? Is there any updates that you can provide in respect to the incident at this time?
Deputy Mayor, it was reported to Public Works, I believe.
Okay, excellent. I'll just allow our admin to comment.
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, the town became aware of the incident from the resident on August 19th, and we do regret the incident that occurred with the resident. We went to our Public Works Department. By August 20th, there were corrective measures, more gravel and additional layers were put on. The blocks were installed in approximately September 2021 when we rehabbed the road. We enhanced the entranceway as was brought up tonight. We also installed the concrete blocks from then. The entranceway, the dog park does receive weekly maintenance from our parks crew. They'll go out, mow, they'll trim up everything. From time to time, they'll make adjustments in and around the area. I don't believe any substantial changes have been done to the entranceway since 2021, but from time to time, they will adjust, paying attention to the front, making sure that as much as is possible to make sure it's level. That said, we get enough rain, we get enough environmental things that occur. Some of the gravel or blocks could shift. When we become aware of these issues as a broader discussion, staff will go out, they'll assess, they'll take corrective measures where they can, they'll make suggestions for future capital programs, and we'll take those into consideration as we go forward for considerations with council.
Excellent, thank you. And then just a follow-up question on that, because you did mention, I know council has it multiple times discussed the Umbak off-leash park. I know there were some drainage changes that were made when there was the upgrades to the roads. I do know that there are other improvements currently on the books in the future for the Umbak off-leash park. Can you advise whereabouts in the capital plan those improvements occur?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, there is an Umbak Park improvement charter. Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me. I know it's within the 10-year capital plan. There are certain improvements, pardon me, certain improvements that to the parking lot that we were considering. I don't recall where it is exactly on the capital plan, but it is within the 10-year plan for some what I call light enhancements to the parking lot, not substantial expansions or anything like that. But there is a charter for that. That would be for council's consideration.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll just look to council. Do we have any questions for Ms. Howell? Seeing none. Yep, go ahead. Absolutely.
The gravel that was taken out and put down in the entranceway is disgraceful. It lasted less than 24 hours before it had been spread by the dogs.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Howell. I do frequent the dog park. My wife has also dealt with some mobility challenges over the last while and certainly understand and sympathize with how difficult that can be. I do agree with you. There is more work to be done there. Ever since the drainage changes for the roadway were done, that entrance has become a little bit more difficult to navigate. And certainly as we heard the weather elements and things like that, I know that there are more. So I do trust our staff is well aware and will be doing everything that they can at this point. And then I think it's good for council to make sure that we keep our eyes on that come corporate plan here this fall and understand where those improvements are and how we might be able to move that along. So thank you very much for coming in this evening, Ms. Howell. Again, our sympathies in regards to the affected from this incident. It doesn't just affect the people who are immediately, it's all those who witness, all those who are involved and that. So appreciate you bringing this forward to council.
Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you. With that, I'll just ask, is there anybody else in chambers who would like to come forward and speak to council about anything not on the current agenda? Seeing none, we will move on. I'll take this time. Welcome, Councillor Anderson. Apologize for the train. If we could do anything about it, we would. Excellent. With that, we'll move to presentations and delegations. There are no presentations scheduled this evening, so we'll move to number 5 of our agenda, statutory public hearings, which again, there also are none on the current agenda. So we will move on to the adoption of council minutes. Councillor Hansard for the motion, please.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move that Town Council approve the July 8, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansard. With that, members of council, you've had the opportunity to read and review the council minutes from July 8th, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, corrections, or questions that you wish to bring forward? Seeing none this evening, then, I will call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to our council committee and board meeting minutes. Tonight, we just have the one set of minutes in front of us, the Stony Plain Library Board from May 15th, 2024. Councillor Anderson, can I have the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Town Council receive the council board and committee minutes for information this evening.
Thank you very much for the motion, Councillor Anderson. We will look for any questions on the Stony Plain Library Board minutes from May 15th, 2024. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right, next item on our agenda is our bylaws. This evening, we have one bylaw before us, the procedural bylaw, with the opportunity for first, second, and third reading. Administration, please go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Laurie and members of council. Administration is presenting an amended procedural bylaw to council this evening to address some procedural and minor clerical amendments to authorize the consolidation of bylaws and to reflect changes to the Municipal Government Act brought about by Bill 20. Although this bylaw is not scheduled for review until 2026, some process changes recently adopted by council, as well as provincially legislated changes, have required amendments be made in advance of the comprehensive review. A few additional authoritative items that have been awaiting the comprehensive review have been included to improve efficiencies. A comprehensive review is targeted for early 2026. A procedural bylaw is a guiding document that establishes the framework for council and council committee meetings to promote order, efficiency, public confidence, and good governance. Procedure bylaws include rules for how meetings are conducted, how decisions are made and recorded, how participants, including the public, are involved in meetings, and how meeting matters such as meeting schedules and notice requirements are handled. When used effectively, a procedure bylaw provides efficient local government meetings and transparent decision-making. Some elements of procedure bylaws are legislatively required, while others are a council choice and based on common practice provided in rules of procedure. The proposed changes within this presentation are outlined in 4 categories: administrative, editorial, consolidation authority, and Bill 20. 3 types of administrative changes are proposed within the bylaw. The first relates to formalizing the new process initiated by the mayor in early 2024, which allows for the deputy mayor position to chair the Governance and Priorities Committee meetings to provide members of council an opportunity to practice the role of chair. The second provides clarity throughout the bylaw in relation to the committee governance framework adopted by council in March, which outlines the open and transparent nature of council-appointed committee meetings as regulated through the Municipal Government Act. And finally, various administrative changes have been proposed, including the addition of a table of contents for ease of use, providing references to the Municipal Government Act, requiring the public to register for the public input session in advance of meetings, and minor wording amendments for enhanced clarity. To achieve efficiencies within meetings, the proposed bylaw includes a section to establish a process to address minor clerical, spelling, and grammatical errors in bylaws, agendas, minutes, and policies that would not require a motion of council. This authorization would allow administration to make changes to the applicable documents to correct the error with notification to council as deemed appropriate. Changes would be minor in nature and not impact or alter the intent of the noted document. Upon passing of this bylaw, administration will request that going forward, council members notify legislative services of any errors found in council agendas or minutes prior to the council meeting. This notification could be provided via email or phone prior to noon on Monday of the meeting date. Legislative services will amend the error and update the public document to ensure accuracy. Legislative services, on behalf of the CAO, will circulate an email to council in advance of the meeting to provide notice of any errors found and corrections made. During the meeting, council can accept the agenda as amended with a verbal indication that minor clerical amendments were made and circulated to council in advance of the meeting. Commentary on the specific minor amendments would not be required. For any agenda amendments that require substantive changes, a formal notification for the amendment would be brought forward. A similar notification process would be used for minor clerical errors found in bylaws and council policies that are currently in effect. Legislative Services would provide interval updates to council on any minor clerical changes made to the bylaw or council policy. The Municipal Government Act allows municipal councils to establish by bylaw a process for the consolidation of bylaws. A consolidation bylaw provides a mechanism to bring forward an amending bylaw to update specific sections of an existing bylaw without reopening the entirety of the bylaw itself. This allows for an efficient and streamlined process when making legislative amendments or partial changes to lengthier or more complicated bylaws, such as the land use bylaw and the traffic bylaw. The consolidated version is a working document that maintains all the amendments captured within one document while outlining the appropriate amending references. This is important for bylaws that have multiple changes to ensure they are easily tracked. The consolidated version is marked as a consolidated copy because it is not an official version of the bylaw. Upon inclusion of this provision in the procedural bylaw, administration would recommend that consolidated bylaws be replaced by a new bylaw when 3 or more amendments have been made. Bill 20 was passed in May 2024 and included changes that impact council meeting proceedings. Changes required in the procedural bylaw include a provision to allow public hearings for planning and development matters to have an option to be provided for by electronic means, removing the ability to hold non-statutory public hearings for planning and development matters, and referencing conflict of interest provisions to allow elected officials to recuse themselves for real or perceived conflicts of interest. The province is currently drafting regulations to coordinate these new provisions. Once the regulations are released, administration will incorporate those requirements into practice. Administration is requesting all 3 readings of the bylaw this evening as the changes address general amendments that are administrative or minor in nature to improve meeting efficiencies, as well as to address changes legislated through Bill 20. A comprehensive review of the bylaw is scheduled to occur in early 2026 in consultation with the next term of council. Thank you. Administration is available to respond to questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation. And with that, members of council, I'll open the floor to any questions specific to clarity or understanding, and we'll reserve our debate or discussion until after the first motion is on the floor. Any questions, clarity, understanding? Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just for clarification, on page 69 of our agenda package is the red line version of the bylaw, and it goes to 35.3.0, and it talks about the public input session. And it is now saying that public members are required to register with the CAO. And you had mentioned in your presentation as well that they're supposed to register. Are we no longer allowing walk-ins like we just had today, or what is going to be the process going forward for that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Loynes, to Councillor Loynes through Deputy Mayor Laurie. So the intent with the change is just to provide a more flexible approach. So we have had a very positive experience with our public input session, and we do not expect that to change. And there is the ability to allow the public to still come in and speak when they show up at the meeting. Ultimately, we're just kind of preparing and being aware of what's going on at some of the communities around us, and we just want to make sure we have tools in our toolbox to be able to manage if we get into a situation where we do need to put some parameters around public input at certain times. But the intent right now is to allow us to continue and function as we have been.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I also had a question about that. I can only think of a few incidents that maybe became a little bit uncomfortable. For the most part, the whole idea of this public input session was to open council up to have people come when they don't necessarily, something recent, very recent has happened, and they don't have time to go through a more formal process, but they want to make council aware of something. Or when they have a concern, but they're hesitant to be more formalized about it. So I didn't want to see us move in a direction where we get so rule-oriented that people feel shut off from council. Otherwise, we might as well do away with the whole process, because this was to make us more open to the public.
Councillor Hansard, this is questions for clarity and understanding. We can definitely debate once the
Sorry,
motion's on the floor.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood you correctly. We're going to continue as is unless something happens or unless we need to clamp down, and then you'll have something in writing to shut it down or more formalize it. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through the councillor answered, I would say, yeah, that is correct. And just on this particular aspect too, in the dialogue and the discussion of moving forward as to what would be proposed in the bylaw, you will note there's no time restriction, there's no deadline 4 days ahead of time. We tried to strike a balance there that in the event of this evening, an individual that shows up, that can constitute registration. They've been here in advance of the meeting. They've said that they want to speak to this, and this is the particular topic. They would be registered. Conversely, if we had 15 people show up on one night, it does give, in this instance, the CAO or delegate the ability to say there is only 3. These are the first 3 people through the door, and that's the bylaw, so to speak, and to ask others to show up at a further meeting or so on and so forth. I'll stop there, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That's some of the consideration that went into it.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And just for clarity, again, while the bylaw does have the specific statements of 3, 5-minute seats, et cetera, there is still liberty of decision of the chair for the chair to allow either for an extension in time or additional number of speakers, correct?
You're correct, Mr. Deputy Mayor there. And I think that also speaks to a bit of the checks and balances that flow through the procedural bylaw. Ultimately, for the most part, council by resolution can alter anything in a procedural bylaw or so to speak. So there's checks and balances throughout.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hansard, any other questions, clarity, understanding? Perfect. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just to the question, besides the example you just gave, would there be any other reason, would it be, I'm not looking to limit someone's ability to speak, but say the subject matter was such that it disagreed, or there was already several other people speaking on a particular subject matter, would that be a reason to prevent someone from registering, or just merely registering means you get heard?
Thank you for the question through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Meyer. Ultimately, I think our intent would be to allow the public to be heard as best as possible. However, as our CAO said, there are tools that would allow us to provide some parameters around that to be able to explore further. So, for example, if we had too many people and we had a lengthy council meeting, the tools within the agenda would allow us to, suggest to the group, are there more than one people speaking about the same thing? Could you have one person represent you? Otherwise, we may have to register you for a later meeting date to present to council. We've left the tools I would say, fairly flexible in the procedure bylaw to give us that ability to continue to work as we are, but put some parameters around that process if need be.
Okay, and just to follow up, and so I imagine in such a scenario, if we were going to utilize any of these tools, I imagine a discussion with council would be had on some level.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Meyer, yes, the conversation would probably occur with the CAO and the chair of the meeting or the mayor, but if council needed to be part of that discussion, then I'm sure the chair or the mayor would bring them into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Palachko.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to refer to page 63 of 117, 18.60. it states, if a person refuses to leave the meeting after being expelled by the chair may request the person be removed. It has crossed out who he was going to ask. Are we referring to now that he can ask anybody to be removed?
Thank you for the question through the mayor through the deputy mayor to Councillor Palechko. When we were doing a quick review of the bylaw, we determined that the verbiage within there was something that was from quite a long time ago, and we wanted to again make it a more flexible process, that it didn't have to be so formalized to have a peace officer come in and do the removal, that we could simply have one of the senior leadership team or the CAO ask somebody if they could kindly leave the chambers if there, was a bit of a problem. But it still gives us the opportunity to have the peace officers come in to do the removal if they're needed to.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions for clarity or understanding? Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. On another piece of this, I wanted to understand the piece around where we see that the removal of non-stat public hearings. It's on page 8. Is that that's all part of this same bylaw, correct?
That is correct. That is a change that was legislated through Bill 20 to the Municipal Government Act.
Okay, could you please, I'm not going to tell you I read all of Bill 20. The removal of non-stat public hearings, how are they different from a statutory public hearing?
Thank you for the question through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Hansard. So the Municipal Government Act legislates that a public hearing must be held for certain matters that come before council, and especially in related to development matters. The Act was silent previously on if a council wanted to have additional public hearings on a matter. But now through Bill 20, the Act has legislated that only one public hearing, mandatory public hearing, must be held, and that development cannot be held up because council chooses to have additional public hearings. The Act is saying that one public hearing is mandatory to be held. That has to be held, and once that's held, council cannot hold additional public hearings on that same matter.
Okay, if I may. Mr. Deputy Mayor, just for clarification, we certainly want to do everything correctly. We certainly don't want the government overly scrutinizing Stony Plain Town Council. What I'm wondering is if we hold a public hearing on a matter, and because generally we're not making, I believe generally we're not making final decisions the day of a public hearing. Usually there's some time. I won't say it never happens. But if the meeting does not go the way that the public wanted, and they started trying to have meetings with, on the side, let's say, with members of council, would we have to be cautious that not 4 of us show up for a meeting, which could, in the strongest interpretation, be considered a council meeting not properly called, but someone trying to influence council in some way, shape, or form on the matter that was brought before council in a public hearing? Are we sort of trying to protect our council and any council from being dragged into another discussion that could cause further problems or further misunderstanding, or one side of a public hearing to feel that they didn't get equal access to council? Is that question clear?
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through the Councillor Hansard, I believe the question is clear, and I'll provide some commentary to that. So I believe The short answer is no. The change being proposed is a direct result of the provincial government's change, and we're just cleaning that up or instituting that into the procedural bylaw. So it's not being done for any other reason other than the government of Alberta's mandated direction or legislative direction to only have one public hearing on development matters. A simple way to say it, I guess. I'll stop there just to see if that answers the question or if there's...
I believe it does, for the most part, answer the question, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If I could just get further clarification. So when we have a public hearing, that is, we tell people, the chair tells people, this is the public's opportunity to speak to this matter. It's understood that we won't have other meetings. There are those who they're not happy or they don't feel they've been heard fully before council even makes a decision. Do we have to be aware of and basically not be put in a position where we get called in to side meetings with people in a number of council members that could be interpreted as a majority, so that anyone could say, we had a public hearing, but there was another side meeting where 4 members of council were present, and they have been persuaded before the final decision is voted upon in subsequent council meetings. I don't have a specific incident. I'm thinking of some issues perhaps in the past that could have been pertaining to what I'm speaking of. I just want to make sure that we do things right and that council is protected in that we're not allowing ourselves to be pulled in to extra meetings that could seem unfair to anyone in the public.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard, and I'll have administration clarify this, but I believe it is on the duty of the councillor, once the public hearing has been closed, that the councillor should be ensuring that they are not participating in any conversations that would allow them to have different information than anyone else. Should a councillor participate in any of those meetings or those conversations, they would then be required to recuse themselves from the vote on the matter if it had not yet occurred. Would that be correct, administration?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would say that would be mostly correct. I think the only thing I would add to that would be there's other systems and checks and balances as well. Code of conduct is one. Oath to come into any decision, with an open mind and a clear conscience, so to speak. So what I believe the challenge, the concern, I don't know that it's entirely governed through the procedural bylaw, but there are other checks and balances in codes and the act itself in some ways that would both protect but also guide council behavior and potentially regulate council behavior as well on that particular topic aspect.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Hansard?
That's good.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Plechko.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. For clarification, again, we'll refer to page 56 of 117. 5.50, Section C, it says, the Deputy Mayor is the Chair of the Governance and Priorities Committee. In absence of the Deputy Mayor, the Mayor may chair the meeting. In the absence of both, do we cancel the meeting?
Thank you for the question through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Plechko. I'll find it here shortly, but there is a clause in the procedure bylaw that indicates during meetings that in the absence of the mayor and deputy mayor that council would elect a chair within themselves. And so when we were going through the procedure bylaw, we felt at this time that covered that provision for the GMP meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe Councillor Anderson's just pointed out that is in 4.3. Quick on the ball. Thank you very much. Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I think 4.3 does speak to that in the absence of both the mayor and the deputy mayor, that council can appoint a councillor as the acting mayor. I have one quick point of clarity on something that's already been discussed, and then a second one. But jumping back to page 69, this is just specific to the length of time of the public input session. Our CAO had made mention that by council resolution, the public input session could be extended. My question here is, there is a clause that allows specific speakers at the discretion of the chair or by council resolution to extend beyond the 5 minutes allotted, but there is no such clause to extend the public input session beyond that 15 minutes. And so it's been alluded that it can be done. And my question there is, do we need to just have that added, that it is at the discretion of the chair or by council resolution to extend the public input session?
Thank you for the question through the Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Anderson. I think at this time, I'll make a note of it for our comprehensive review. There's a clause in our procedure bylaw that allows council to waive the rules of procedure to make a clause that would allow for that going forward.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I'm going to go down to page 73, and this is around, I think it's titled editorial, and this was, I think, spoken to in the presentation that the CAO can make changes to bylaws, policies, agendas, minutes, or resolutions to correct spelling, et cetera. My question relates to 41.2 and the word may in this item. So the CAO may provide notice of the changes made under clause 41.1.0 in the manner that they deem appropriate. And so just looking for some clarity here, please, in, is this that they are, the may refers to the manner or the notification in general? If that doesn't make sense, I can try again.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Anderson. Yes, the may is intended to be in the manner. We would provide, we would have a requirement to provide notification to council on those changes.
Perfect, and that's exactly what I had hoped to hear, certainly and especially mean the same thing, but correct spelling, you know, maybe not a big deal, but when there's a correction there because an error has been made, I think it's prudent that council's made aware of those changes, and so I certainly appreciate that the may refers to the manner, not the notification, so thank you for the clarity.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, clarity, understanding? Councillor Hansard.
One last one, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Actually, there's two others, but I'll forego those. This one I needed clarification on, and because it's in the printed form and the public can access it, I would like to have it addressed, please. 21.1.0. It's under voting and recorded votes. Each member present must vote on every motion unless the member is required or permitted to abstain from voting under the Act. Could we be told, without having to go somewhere to look it up or expecting the public to go somewhere and look it up, what exactly would allow a member on council to abstain? Because I know from our early orientations, we're told you must vote on every motion before council.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. I think 21.2 does speak to it a little bit, and I think it was also referenced earlier. It's just pecuniary, or with the changes to Bill 20, there is now the inclusion of conflict of interest, which is listed in Bill 20 as real or perceived.
So you felt, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that 21.2, et cetera, speaks back to 21.1?
Yes.
Point zero?
The permitted to abstain from on voting under the Act is only by the pecuniary or conflict of interest.
Okay, and could we just get clarification that that is indeed the fact?
Thank you for the question through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Hansard. Through the Municipal Government Act, those would be the two reasons. However, in the Municipal Government Act, it does reference if any other act allows to a councillor to abstain, so I would have to do a little more digging to determine if there's any other pieces in other acts that would allow for that. But I would trust that our colleagues would have that information available for council's understanding if a matter subject to another act came before council.
Okay, and I thank you for letting me ask that question, and I did accept your answer. Just wanted to know from our person who's fashioned all of this where we stood, because, Mr. Deputy Mayor, every one of us have sat at some time in this council chambers and wish we didn't have to cast a yes or no vote on something. but we do. And it's good that that isn't just an easy out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansard. Any other questions, clarity, understanding on the bylaw? Seeing none, I do have one. We'll refer to page 59, 11.1.0. All council and committee is the new words added. Meetings shall be open to the public unless a meeting, part of a meeting authorized to be closed in accordance with the Act. Just confirming with administration, does this now include the other council-appointed committees or council-created committees such as the Growth and Commerce Committee and the Cultural Roundtable?
Thank you to Deputy Mayor Laurie for the question. This will work in coordination with the establishing bylaws that will be coming forward in the next couple months. Once those establishing bylaws come forward, then yes, this will apply to all of those meetings as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the questions of clarity and understanding from council members. So with that, we will now move to the first motion, and I will go Councillor Meyer for the first reading, please.
Yes, I make a motion that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2695/G/24, a bylaw for the purpose of regulating the proceedings and conduct of council and council committee meetings.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meyer. With that, the floor is now open for debate and discussion. I will move on that and see if we have any debate or discussion on the bylaw. Seeing none, I do actually have the first one. We'll refer to page 56, 5.5.0 CI. We did discuss this a little bit in the clarity and understanding. Thank you very much, Councillor Palechko, for that. It states, in the absence of the deputy mayor, the mayor may chair the meeting. Question through to administration before the debating aspect of it is, in other circumstances, when the mayor has appointed duties to the deputy mayor, if the deputy mayor is not available, typically it reverts to the previous deputy mayor. And I know in time, sometimes it's even gone down too. Is there a reason why in this bylaw we're going back up to the mayor rather than just going to the previous deputy mayor or going directly to a shall be chosen by those present?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Laurie. I think for simplicity, we just referenced it back to the mayor because originally the mayor was the selected individual to chair the meeting, and this was a new process whereby we wanted an opportunity for all of council to enhance their chairing skills. So it just was cleaner to put it that way because there was the reference to allow for additional chairs already outlined in the procedure bylaw. If it's something that council feels could be looked at, we could add it to our comprehensive review for further consideration at that time.
Thank you very much. And then this question may determine whether I ask for anything more on that. The terminology is the mayor may chair the meeting. Looking at interpretation of bylaw, the word may is obviously open for interpretation. So does this mean that while it states the mayor may chair the meeting, that the mayor may also appoint the chair to someone else?
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie, my interpretation would be that is accurate.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. The second one that I have, actually, again, Councillor Anderson had pointed out in regards to 41.2.0. And this is, again, where I do have a challenge with the may. When it states the CAO may provide notice of the changes made under clause 41.1.0 in the manner that they deem appropriate. From an interpretation standpoint, that may could state in regards to matter of how or a matter of if. I do find this one to be unclear, and if the intention of the bylaw is that the notice must or shall be given, I do think it does speak to the manner that they deem appropriate. I'm just wondering if the word shall would be more appropriate than the word may in this instance.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to all of council, we can make that change if council wants to approve first reading as amended with that change.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll just open up. Councillor Anderson?
I'm going to pick up on that if I could. And just for clarity for myself, would that be correction as noted under 41.1.0B that the CAO could have made that would not impact or alter the intent of the document that then could be communicated to council? Like, is that an example of what we're looking at here when we're saying the CAO at their discretion can make corrections? Would that be an example of one of those corrections that could be made?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, for the question. Before it goes to administration, I will add my interpretation of it. That would be a change of intent, which I don't believe would be allowed under it, but I will leave it to administration.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through the rest of the council, just on that specific or that specific change, I wouldn't consider that as an editorial change. There's my general understanding, my general, experience, there's a difference between may and shall. And it's not just editorial. It can be interpreted. One is a absolute requirement and one is a little more leeway, a little more open.
Certainly, and I appreciate that. And as our Manager of Legislative Services had alluded to earlier in the meeting, the intent there was that it would be communicated. And so that's where I think the confusion comes in. And Councillor Meyer and I, kind of thought, it's one of those grammar things that, certainly depending on your interpretation, can change what's read into what's there. And so I appreciate the Deputy Mayor bringing that forward.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments related to that matter or debate related to that matter? Again, for clarity, it's 41.2.0, changing it from the CAO may provide notice to the CAO shall provide notice. And Councillor Meyer, you're comfortable with the motion being amended rather than as presented? Yep. Thank you very much. Any other questions, matters of debate or discussion before we go to question for the first reading? Seeing none, the motion is on the floor. It is now as amended. I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. A motion for second reading. Councillor Loynes, please.
I move that Town Council give second reading to bylaw 2695/G/24.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Looking for any other debate or discussion on the matter? The floor is open. Seeing none, I will call the question for second reading. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on for unanimous consent. The Municipal Government Act states that as a proposed bylaw must not have more than 2 readings in a council meeting unless all councillors present unanimously agree to consider the third reading. With that, Councillor Palechko, can I have the motion for unanimous consent?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Move that Town Council give unanimous consent to consider third reading of bylaw 2695/G/24.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Palechko. With that, the floor is open for any debate or discussion or anyone who feels that maybe this should not move forward with unanimous consent and third reading tonight. Seeing none, I will call the question for unanimous consent. All in favor? That is carried unanimously as required. Thank you very much. And for third reading, members of question, any questions to specify any clarity or understanding at this point in time before we go to the third motion? Seeing none, Councillor Hansard with the motion for third reading, please.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move that Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2695/G/24.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansard. With that, floor is open again for debate and discussion on the bylaw on third reading. Perfect. Seeing none, we'll call the question for third reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, administration, for the presentation and for all of your answers to all of the questions. With that, we'll move into our business items. Item 9 on our agenda. 9.1 is the 2024 second quarter report. Administration, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Again, always pleased to have the quarterly reports in front of council. Not going to specifically draw out any particular information in there, but as in the past, the information does make its way into the public. This is a bit of a backcast. It's looking back into the second quarter of this year. but we do get that information out into the public in various forms through social media. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, certainly willing and able, myself and the team, to answer any questions council may have or provide any further commentary on anything contained within the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. And with that, I will open the floor to council for any questions of clarity or understanding, or any questions in regards to the content of the presentation. Again, for the public, this is our Q2 update, so this was until the end of June. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One of the things that have heard anecdotally picking up again here through the second quarter and into the third quarter is that related to stolen vehicles. And so looking on the enforcement services section of the Q2 report here, I think it's page 1297 of our agenda package. Certainly we see, some stats here, but just wondering if we could have some comments from the General Manager of Protective Services, whether that, maybe anecdotal, just that we're hearing that more, if there's been any word from our RCMP or peace officer counterparts that would bear that to fruition.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson. So just for clarity, stolen vehicles is the question. Yes, when Inspector McGilvery was last in the chambers to do a report for us, I believe it was in May, did provide the crime stats related to stolen vehicles, and it was up. I don't have the stats in front of me, but if I recall, about 2/3 of those new stats were keys in vehicle running, vehicles unlocked. So I think the inspector described it as a crime of opportunity in terms of if it's not locked, typically it's easy for someone just to jump in and go with your vehicle. So they've done some tremendous work with respect to walking around at night to make sure that things are locked. They either lock it or knock on the door and say your garage door is open, your car's open, and just educate people with respect to locking things up. So the majority of those increases in vehicles are being stolen. It's not something that's stopped happening. It certainly does continue to happen. If vehicles are locked, the number seems to be lower or around the average that we continue to see annually. If they're not locked, and typically I think we see in that cooler time frame when we leave our vehicle idling for a little bit longer. However, I think we could probably say that to be true in the warmer sections too, when air conditioning is on in vehicles prior to people getting in. So I think we can see a bit of an increase in those types of temperature swings related to people running their vehicles with keys in versus locking the vehicle. So command starts and those other things that the inspector did mention as prevention techniques certainly do help in that situation. But you're probably accurate with respect to people saying there's been a bit of an increase, and I think the inspector did confirm that, but did confirm the majority of those increases were related to crime of convenience.
Yeah, thank you, and I certainly appreciate that. And unfortunately, not just vehicles, but trailers and that sort of thing these days as well. I'm going to jump down, if I may, Deputy Mayor, for one more question. This is page 100 of our package related to facility hours, specific to scheduling of our ball diamonds, but certainly could speak to some of our other amenities as well. Great to see an increase year over year. Great to see 1,679 hours scheduled there, which is great. I do notice, though, sometimes driving around town that our diamonds seem to be empty. For example, Sunday, I think it was 2 o'clock, went for a drive and didn't see anybody out on the diamonds that I passed. And so I'm just wondering, what this looks like in terms of our available hours. Like, are we seeing that our diamond amenities or our field amenities are well utilized? Or is this an area that, maybe we have room for growth? As an example, spoke with a minor softball organization this week who mentioned they spend a lot of time driving into the city for games and that sort of thing. And so certainly we want to make that amenity available to our residents in our region, and I'm just wondering what our utilization looks like on those fields.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson, a couple of things there to comment on just from a general component. For a lot of our minor sport groups, it depends on the league that they belong to also. So if minor softball from a women or men's division belong to an Edmonton an Edmonton division, then certainly their program is going to be, and where they play is going to be depicted based on that particular program. So if it's a local program that's hosted like a Parkland or Stony Plain or Spruce Grove specific, definitely they would be using our own local facilities more than someone that, and I think soccer is a good example. They're part of a larger Edmonton Metro Region league. So you're not going to see particularly a lot of soccer games out this way. Teams might have to travel into Edmonton. Hockey is another example of that because they are part of an Edmonton league too. Certainly the timeframes of which those sports hold their season. Some seasons are done in July, some extend into August. Most are done by this point in the season. So I think if you're in the later part of August, most seasons are done unless you're playing an elite or you're extending further into the provincial national type of qualification. But for the most part, your diamond or field sports are essentially done mid to third week of July for the most part.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments there. Do we have any opportunity maybe to reach out to community groups? I know certainly there are groups that we're familiar with because they're in contact regularly. They're regularly booking, whether it's our ice time or, so you alluded to soccer and that sort of thing. But, do we have contact with maybe some of the other groups in the area to see if there's a way that we can, provide field space and that sort of thing? Or is it just when those groups reach out to us that we'll sort of let them know what's available? So maybe some comments on what that process looks like.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson. Certainly in the spring, we do have a large allocation meeting where we do meet with all the user groups to understand what their field usage is. Do the same thing with the indoor facilities also. And everything is allocated based on what they need in order to provide their programming. If they do need something outside of their programming schedule, then definitely they are aware that they can just call the town. That being said, there's a lot of spontaneous use that does happen from time to time that is not within that booking schedule. And I do believe that we provide access to our field and green spaces to the general public. So the opportunity for you and your family to go and play softball, slow pitch, not necessarily requires a booking. If you want to guarantee your time and be able to have that field for your particular use, then certainly that's how most people do, is they book the field. But for you and your son or daughter to go and hit a ball and throw catch for a couple of hours, for the most part, if a team that's booked the field wants to use it or comes to the field, then they would just displace themselves and go to a different green space to perform that activity. So I do believe and confident that our groups, if they need more field space, we would certainly hear about it. If they need space outside of the allocated hours that they've communicated to us, they definitely do make that contact with us to see if there's availability. If we have teams outside of the region, most will phone and see what the availability is here. We have lots of tournament space out at Parkland County office. So a lot of because there's 4 fields within proximity of each other, a lot of the big tournaments go out there for that particular option.
Perfect, and I appreciate that. I'll apologize. I normally would start my comments in our quarterly reports with what I love. It's one of my favorites. Today I jumped to the question, so I apologize for that. But one of the things that really stood out that I think we can, take some pride in and, see the value for the dollar, so to speak, but that's our transit, and this is page 101, but looking at the increase for ridership that started and ended in Stony Plain month over month from last year is significant. I'm not going to guess a number, but certainly statistically relevant in terms of the increase that we're seeing there. And so that uptick is fantastic to see, and kudos to our staff for all they do in promoting that and running that amenity for residents in town. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, and definitely I agree with you in regards to the usership of the fields. I'd love to hear from our community groups. I did speak with one in regards to hockey and on our last downtown Thursday night at the council booth, and strongly encourage them to attend governance and priorities meetings to do presentation at council. And so just encourage all members of council, if we do have community groups, especially if we're having conversations about spaces, concerns, challenges, etc., definitely get them in touch with administration to come present to us at GMP. I think it's great for us to hear, not just from our administration, but from the users themselves, the experience that they're having. With that, looking for any other questions, clarity, understanding, anything that anybody would like to highlight in respect to the report? Councillor Hanser, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Sometimes it's not a question or for clarity, it's a comment. And I certainly enjoy the quarterly report. Some of my favorite things that ever come in council packages are the quarterly reports. So thanks to everybody who contributes and put this together for us, and in such a beautiful, easy to read way. I wanted to just point out something that maybe the public in general won't see, but I'm quite impressed on page 93 of 117, the webpage analytics, which show a huge increase in traffic going to our web pages. So we had 224,505 visits, and that's an increase of 81,515, which is enormous. And I'm assuming that's for the quarter. So kudos to everybody that is helping to get the public more involved in going to the town website. Farmers Days took first place on that with over 36,000 views over that particular festival that we have, and then it goes right down a whole list. So if the public's wanting to go for a quick view of this, it's on page 93 of 117 of the council package, included in the quarterly report. Overall, I interpreted this as very positive for the town. We're seeing a good many things addressed, improved, taken action on, and I have no complaints about that. I'm extremely pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I do want to highlight one little sentence here, actually, on page 91, in regard to the summer sessions and our new purchasable A-list access ticket option. I think that's it's just a small little blurb here, but I think it's great that it's an opportunity for us to fundraise a little. By the sounds of it, it's not going to pay for the summer sessions, but you know, every little bit helps. I also think it's great. It shows initiative on administration's behalf to take an idea and add to it, and I think it certainly also enhances what is a great experience and that's already out there and makes it even better. So I think that's a great one, and kudos to admin.
Page 91. Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Meyer. And yes, the summer sessions was a fantastic, another fantastic season. And like I said, that A-list access is something that to be interested to hear more about. I think it's very neat. Any other questions, clarity, understanding, any other points, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, but Councillor Meyer, I'm going to look to admin for some comments on that one, because I believed that those, or actually let me back up. Is this speaking to the red Adirondacks that were in the front row at summer sessions? Is this the A-list that we're referring to here?
Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Anderson and all of council, yes, that is correct. There was a row of the Adirondack chairs that were placed at this, right at the front of the stage that could be purchased to provide people with sort of front row seating and a beverage snack to just kind of enhance their experience of attendance. So, yeah.
Okay. I thought I saw them. I was there a number of times this summer. I thought those were sort of, if you showed up early, you could access that. And I thought I had seen a post that said, you know, show up because they were free and had snacks and that sort of thing. So I didn't fully understand and maybe was a little bit confused. And so certainly A-list access. What would that cost a resident if they wanted a red Adirondack to enjoy the show?
Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson, yes. So this was the first year, just for clarification, I think it says in the report that it was the first year that we have provided these. So a little bit of like learning and getting that out into the community. We certainly saw the interest in those chairs, you know, sort of uptake was slow in the beginning, and then I think the seats were all utilized for the last, or just about all utilized for the last concert. I believe the price point for those was somewhere between $15 and $20, if I remember correctly. So, still very affordable and accessible, and just provided an enhanced experience. Although I saw lots of people bringing in far more comfortable lawn chairs themselves this year as well. So the lawn chairs are getting much more, you know, interesting every year, more comfy and cozy as well, that people are bringing in.
Thank you for that.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any other questions, any other items to point out? Seeing none. I do just have one on page 105. It's nice to see the update on the Tri-Transit Summer Youth Passes. Council, remember we funded 100 free youth transit passes for 1 month free transit. This is showing we had 80 youth sign up for the Tri-Transit Summer Program, and this is as of the Q2 report, so I'll be interested to hear the full one. But I love seeing the results that had already come in from the survey. 97% of participants felt the program made it easier for them to get around, and they expressed they'd use transit more because of the pass. As we heard Councillor Anders say, the numbers are already up, so again, expect those numbers to keep climbing. Additionally, 90% of the youth felt more supported by the community due to the program. I think that's fantastic when we can support the youth in our community, as they're the next generation upcoming. And surprisingly, 31% indicated they would use the passes to get to work. That's a pretty significant number, considering that there's not that many that are below the age of probably 16, especially, that would be working. So, I mean, not many of the 12 to 15-year-olds were probably selecting yes on that. So to have 31%, I'd be curious to know what percentage of riders 16 and over actually selected yes to that. Because I have a feeling that they would be a vast majority. So again, I think that just shows for a very, very, very inexpensive ad, the impact that was made on this was fantastic. Seeing no more questions, no more comments, no more highlights from the report, I will look to Councillor Anderson for the motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Town Council accept the 2024 second quarter report for information.
Thank you very much. Any debate or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call to question. All those in favor? Perfect, that is carried. Thank you very much. That is the end of our business items. At this point in time, we will now move into council discussion, and I will start down to the far right with Councillor Loynes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Only thing for me today is just a reminder that school is starting for our students on Wednesday, and that the peace officers will be out at the schools, making sure the kids are arriving safely, but just be aware that there will be a lot of kids just starting for the first time and a lot of buses going around, and just to be extra careful. And that is all for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just highlight back a few weeks ago now, Paul Band had invited us out to their powwow. I was happy to attend and danced, shuffled the flag into the grand entrance, and just appreciative that the invite was extended. So.
Of things I would like to ask or bring forward this evening. One relates to the temperature in the summer. Now, we have a winter emergency response in the Tri-Region. Spruce Grove is a partner in that, where we look for our residents and friends that are unsheltered to provide support when the temperature drops. I'm just wondering if administration could provide some comments about what we do when the temperature increases. And certainly when we see temperatures well above 30, mid-30s and higher depending on the humidity, certainly our friends and neighbors that are unsheltered require some support then too. And so just looking for some commentary on what sort of summer emergency response we provide or could provide moving forward when the temperatures are increasing.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I believe unless the General Manager of Protective Services wishes to add, I probably will take that away and have that response provided by our Community and Social Development Department to make sure I'm providing accurate information. I don't want to say something that's inaccurate at this point. I'm not entirely sure, so.
So thank you very much. I can actually respond to that. So we do have a Keep Cool program. I pulled it up here because I was aware of it. So you can call 911 if you need access to emergency services, or 211 will also provide you with direction on where you can go. The Westview Health Center is available during the extreme heat. You register with security. The Stony Plain Public Library is a participant of that during their hours, and this also lists St. Matthew Lutheran Church as a participant in it. Again, though, I would expect that through 211 they would be able to advise you of that, but we do have an extreme heat response similar to the cold in the winter.
Okay, thank you for that. And certainly, I was unaware as a Keep Cool program. I just through conversation, I believe our CPOs and some of our enforcement services will take water around with them to ensure that people stay hydrated, those sorts of things. I know the library was open, but certainly I think it's something prudent for us to consider moving forward as, temperatures seem to be sort of that average increasing year over year, and what we can and need to be doing to ensure the health and safety of everyone in our community. And so no further question there, but certainly I think something for us to consider. Second relates to, we spoke about summer sessions. I had the privilege, I know Deputy Mayor Laurie was there as well, and Councillor Hansard, but to see the ESO outdoors, certainly a phenomenal turnout and a packed house. One of the things that I noticed though, and sort of reflecting back, I've noticed it at summer sessions, I've noticed it at a couple of different community events specific to Heritage Park, but that's at times, and this relates actually to our first guest this evening, Mrs. Howell, who spoke to accessibility and the ability of those using mobility aids to safely get around our community. And at times at Heritage Park, because of the gravel and the crowds, certainly we have residents and guests in our community that struggle using some of those same pieces of equipment, whether that's canes, whether that's manual or motorized equipment to get around. And so I'm wondering about the possibility or viability of designating accessible seating, moms with strollers or dads with strollers, that sort of thing as well, but just some seating that's designated for those who may need a little bit of extra room and may need, that firm service to walk around on. Specific to the ESO, getting through the crowds and whatnot because of the setup there was certainly a challenge for a few individuals that I observed that day. And so just maybe to administration, do we currently do something that I'm not aware of, similar to Keep Cool? Or is there an opportunity here for us to ensure equitable opportunity for all residents of the community to enjoy those programs?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson, just off the top of my head at this moment, as I think about Heritage Park and the layout of Heritage Park, a lot would be dependent on what's happening and how they lay their event out. As an example, the outdoor movie. In order to get the best viewing was, of course, on the gravel area, but we do have the paved aprons where people certainly that had some accessibility challenges could set themselves up in. And I believe we'd still have pretty decent viewing of that particular event, but there are other events where that may not provide the same advantage. So I think, default would be, we've got the asphalt apron, which is close to the building, of the pavilion building, where certainly they could still be part of it, but they're not as close as the Adirondack chairs that you mentioned earlier. So there would be a little bit more effort to ensure that someone with mobility challenges was able to access that close. Thank you for bringing it up. It might be something that we might have to consider, some sort of portable surface that would provide that opportunity for events moving forward. So something we can definitely research and look into. I think in the meantime, we do have the asphalt apron that does provide some accessibility throughout the building and around the building. But there's probably opportunity for us to improve that so they can have a more closer experience on some of those events that extend further into that gravel section.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate that, and I think that asphalt apron has become the default. I think part of the challenge there is that is sort of the active corridor for people, coming to and from that event, or if they're going inside to the washroom. And so, now we have people that sort of have set up on that area, but now become a bit of a barrier to others being able to traverse the area freely. And so I appreciate the willingness to take that question back. I think there's an opportunity here for us to do something. I don't want to hazard a guess as to what that something would be, but I think there is an opportunity to ensure, again, the safety, but also the enjoyment of those activities for all of our residents and guests to our community. With that, we started last year at the end of council meeting with a little bit of gratitude and just trying to ensure that we recognize those in our community, those on staff with our town, for the work that they do and the impact that they have. And certainly I've heard some great feedback with that and want to continue that again this year. And so I will end my comments this evening with gratitude to our program staff. The number of events that go on in the summer in Stony Plain is tremendous, and truly, attending cultural campfires and listening to and sharing in the stories of residents who may not have been born here in the area or even in the country, but are now our neighbors and friends and an integral part of the fabric of our community, to our summer sessions and hearing residents and guests share their musical talents with us, and the number of people. I think we had record-setting nights more than once this year. To our Midsummer Thursdays and all that brings, and so my gratitude today really goes out to those staff that are hands-on, that are there each day. For those activities, for those events, ensuring our residents feel a part of this community. And I think that's a very, very important thing. And so on behalf of, our council, to our general managers, please take that back to your staff and thank them immensely for the work that they do each and every day.
So thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. I will echo some of the concerns. The Edmonton Symphony Orchestra was a fantastic event. It was a fantastic event last year, and because of that, the crowds were quite large. It filled the pavilion and almost all the way back to the Blueberry stage until intermission, where I think half of the people outside thought that it was actually over because they could not hear what was going on inside. And so a fair chunk of the crowd outside. However, I did notice when I went inside that there were a significant area in which could have been utilized for more accessible. And because this wasn't a town event, I think particularly on that event, the space could have been managed much better. I noticed there were absolutely no lanes or corridors or anything like that. So I'm not sure what we have in place in regards to event setup, in regards to emergency requirements for walking lanes and things like that. But maybe just some feedback to ESO for their usage of the facility and their future events because of how popular it is. About maybe having some of their volunteers ensuring that when people are setting up, they're maintaining some access ways, some pathways, and people can walk and traverse. Making sure that if there is indoor seating outside of the the sun and the elements, that it is utilized for those who, again, either with some ailments or with inability for getting themselves around. Just a little bit more work, I think, on that front could have gone a very long way. It was still a fantastic event, but again, because of the popularity of it, I think it presented some challenges that came to light. So really appreciate you bringing those forward. Councillor Hansard.
Deputy Mayor, I don't have to really say much about ESO. Everybody said everything, except I was very privileged to be there, and it was wonderful. My husband wasn't able to make it, and he absolutely adores classical music, so I'll have to twist his arm to come next year. Two things I wanted to bring up, and I certainly hope Councillor Palachko will end on positive notes. I don't mean this to be negative, but it is something that I think we need to perhaps discuss just a moment here in council chambers. Council faced a fair amount of objection and neighborhood concern over the RCMP location development. And here we are at the end of summer, and I think that's fueled some concerns. I walk in that area a lot. I run into different people, and I'm hearing concerns that the flavor is being laid down for what kind of neighbor that development will create, because that site is not acceptable in its current condition. It's been neglected most of summer. It's grown up immensely. It appears nobody cares about it, and the neighborhood is upset. So if I could leave that on the table for somebody to please look in to requiring that that be looked after and maintained better until such time as they are able to move forward with the actual development, that would be wonderful. And then I was approached by two people who would like to know, why is it that the town seems to cut off looking after Veterans Boulevard from Fairways Drive south to 628 or 627, whichever it is, 79th Avenue? Because most of the spring and summer, it was not mowed at all, and the grass and so forth was over 2 feet tall, in some periods a little bit more. Now that the lands to the east have gone into foreclosure sale, somebody's gone in and mowed all of that east side of Veterans Boulevard, but the west side of Veterans Boulevard remains objectionably high. So do we not look after that? Is it ours to maintain? Or was it the company that did the development on Veterans Boulevard hasn't signed that over to the town? Could that be please looked after? Because that also is not typical of Stony Plain. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. Maybe I'll just look to admin to confirm this. I believe those lands further to that would be the south of Fairway Drive, the properties that you'd be referring to, I believe that would be the property owner's responsibility for the maintenance as they front onto Veterans Boulevard. Would that be correct, admin?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Hansard, all of Council. That's my recollection as well. I was going to offer to look into and confirm that and send an email back to Council to confirm.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, if we can get an email response in regards to that, and then in regards to the community standards bylaw on the RCMP site to make sure that it's being maintained appropriately, and if there is any action that's required, just an update on that would be greatly appreciated. Councillor Palachko.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll try my best.
Can you just talk into your mic? It's sideways. We can't hear you.
I'll do my best to end on a positive note this evening, Councillor Hansard. First off, I want to thank Public Works. I spent a bit of time around the town this summer listening to people comment on how well our town looked. And one of the areas that I thought really they did a great job that we can do more on is as you come into town by John Paul II, the area that had grown all over where you couldn't see any of the underbrush or anything like that, there's the sign and there's usually flowers in there. They've now cleaned that completely back out so it doesn't look like a weed infested area. I would say they're about 90% done, and it looks phenomenal, and I've had lots of people comment on that. So if we can continue with that in the future, that would be a great thing, as well as most of the areas within town. It's probably the first summer I've gone through where I haven't had a number of calls regarding improper trimming or anything like that. So kudos to your public works staff. I do want to highlight Midsummer Thursdays. I thought it was really good that we had employees out there. I know it takes a lot of time out of their evenings to come out and participate in it, but I think it's well spoken to within the community. Lots of comments around walking downtown of how well the presence from the town is. So it's duly noted by our citizens, and I can say I really appreciate seeing the employees there, as well as council. I always like to spend some time with you, and thank you for that as well. Had a bit of time to spend down at the grounds this summer with Music in the Park. And as that event grows, it's starting to show its age. And it's starting to show it really bad on the stage. And I'm just wondering if maybe we as council and administration can take a look at that to see what we can do to better that stage for the acts that we're getting. Half the time they can't see the people out there, and we can't see what they're doing because the sun is shining on them at that time of day. So just a few thoughts that we might be able to improve the stage or add an awning to the front of it so that the heat is not so relevant to the people that are up there performing. It gets very hot. I've had some pretty good conversations with some of the people up there, and it was interesting to hear, as well as the people with mobilities. They can't get close enough to the stages to feel like they're participating in it. They're left to be wondering at the back. I know Councillor Anderson referred to that, and I do appreciate that because I heard that quite a few times while I was down there this summer. So again, on a positive note, I think we had an awesome summer, many events within our community, and probably record every event almost that we had this summer, along with our beautiful farm days. It was phenomenal. So we look to the fall to see some of the good things that always comes out this fall, and thank you, administration, for all that you do, and the town employees.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Palechko. With that, I've just got a few things to finish up this evening. First and foremost, again, I'll echo what Councillor Palechko just said there. The town has been in phenomenal condition. Our public works staff and all of our town employees have done an incredible job. I know there were some changes that we approved through corporate plan based on some of the expectations and the feedback we'd received from residents, and I would say the result is showing. It has been fantastic. If they could figure out something to do about the wasps, I think that would be perfect, because holy, this year they are bad. Again, and kudos to our staff on this, our summer events this year, again, hands down, were fantastic. And not only those events that went perfectly because of the weather, but also those events that had to pivot, like the outdoor movie with the weather that rolled in. Our staff did an incredible job of being adaptable and responsive to ensure that that event could still continue rather than just having to cancel it because of the weather coming in. So I know those that stuck it out through the wind, the rain, and the lightning really appreciated the opportunity to continue on with that and still have the event move forward. So just a huge kudos on that. I do have one question. I noticed this throughout the summer as it was being constructed, and unfortunately with the first rainfall, it showed its trueness. The new trail along Highway 16A seems to have some significant drainage concerns. There were 2 great culverts that were installed to bring the water to the wetland that was there, but then it seemed that a swale wasn't constructed or something. So there's quite a bit of drainage and grading issues there. I'm just wondering, has that been signed off? Is that something that's feedback that's gone back to the contractor to have corrected, or what's our status on that?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, the trail has not been has construction completion certificate as of yet. These were details that were we'll call it preliminarily noticed at an early inspection. Some some of the observations brought forward by the community and council have been shared with the contractor, and our staff are following up with them. That includes some of the areas that you mentioned with regards to ditches as well as on the surface itself. So those are being looked at right now by staff with the contractor, and I trust that they'll be dealt with in due time.
Excellent, thank you very much. It pleases my active transportation-minded heart to see how well this trail is already being used. It is actually borderline crazy to see the amount of traffic on it. It's incredibly positive. I think it was long overdue, and I know our community significantly appreciates it. I am very worried about if we are seeing what we are seeing now in regards to just simple overland drainage, about what the ramifications of piled up snow from snow clearing on the highway and its eventual melt across that would create for treacherous conditions throughout the entire winter and spring period. So I appreciate that administration is on top of that, and I'm sure a suitable solution will be achieved on that. Other than that, again, a reminder that school is back, as crazy as it seems that we are already there, but it is. And so, yes, all of those little happy and some unhappy faces will be out and on the sidewalks and very excited. So I just encourage everybody to exercise extreme caution this week and next week and always as kids go back to school. Bikes are flying in and out as much as we wish they wouldn't. We do know what happens. We do know people will step off in places maybe they shouldn't. So a little bit of extra care and attention. And again, a thank you in advance to all of our wonderful staff, our peace officers, our fire department members, everyone who does take that first week to go out, spend time at the crosswalks, remind people of the safe practices to ensure that everybody goes back and forth safely. And with that, thank you very much to administration for a little bit of a lighter agenda to ease us back in to our role as well. Again, it was a fantastic summer break, but very excited to be back this evening and back underway for normal business. As the CAO and I were discussing before the meeting, sometimes routine is a good thing, and as great as summer is, that little bit of a scramble where everything just doesn't fall into place on a calendar anymore can create a bit of confusion. So with that, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all, council, very much for your participation this evening, and we will see you again next Monday for GMP. Take care.